Hi, I'm Paul Warren,
And I'm Ryan Klein.
and this is another episode of SEO is Dead and Other Lies. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling pretty well, all things considered. I know that we sync up on a lot of things, but who would have thought that we would have synced up with our COVID vaccination? It's pretty
That
interesting.
is pretty weird, isn't it?
They were like hours apart, and then the second one was hours apart.
You synced up with my wife's at the same time too, so all three of us are in the same boat. But
We've always been close. Oh yeah, yeah. So
brain fog is real.
we were gonna do this podcast last night, and we're like, we're not really feeling too much of the side effects, feeling a little bit tired, but sure enough, we're like, let's push it to tomorrow. And an hour after we decide to hop off, maybe even sooner, I would have had like some of the worst brain fog. I still have it.
Brain fog. So hey,
Brain
if
fog.
you're listening, I hope we stay on topic. I don't know. We should. So we actually have a continuation of our last podcast, which was the 5 tough SEO questions that all SEOs get asked. And this is actually 6 through 10. It's a 2-part episode. So surprise, it's coming back. But this is going to be great because again, you're probably going to be asked these questions if you do SEO in a company or like for clients or whatever. And so we're going to, kind of give you some, at least our answers that we would say. And there generally isn't like necessarily a right answer to any of these things. It's just kind of how we deal with them when they come up. So
I think that our answers aren't the ones where it's like for appeasement or to push off an answer or a problem. It's really taking it head on and being like, this is the most transparent, professional way I would address your question. And I'd really love to hear anyone give us feedback, be like, yeah, I got asked that question. I wish that I approached it maybe the way that you guys did. So yeah, if you enjoy those questions, definitely let us know. And if we don't end up covering the tough questions or maybe a question you've been asked and you're literally listening to us, I have 10 minutes or an hour to answer this question. Just shoot us an email.
yeah, definitely. So let's get rolling. Let's kick it off.
Okay.
All right. So number 6. So I guess number 1 from this week. Or just ask the question. All right. Google is monetizing results more and more. It looks like SEO may be dead after all, right? So I haven't actually, I don't normally get asked this question because people hiring me to do SEO specifically. So they have some sort of concept that this is going to work. But in general, I've been asked this question, right? Like at large. And I would say that that's definitely not true. People spend their entire lives Googling stuff and never once like click on like an ad, like a paid ad. Like I've never once converted for anyone from a paid ad.
Right. You're that type of consumer, right?
Yeah. I am that type of, and there's plenty of consumers just like me. And then you have to think about like, well, there's a lot of different types of search now. There's like localized search. There's like super localized search, which is like map pack, right? So local SEO, and like national SEO, right? And so all of those have had different things that have been monetized from an ad standpoint, but all of them are super valuable still to this day. You're never going to have the click-through rates on ads, and you're never going to have like the trust of an organic result like on an ad. And that's just how people hate to be advertised to. They hate knowing that they're being advertised to.
Yeah.
So
that's what it comes down to. So
yeah,
I didn't know if you want to finish your thought. Go ahead.
I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And I think that people sometimes are short-sighted with how incrementally monetized Google really has been. I mean, when we started doing this, there were already Google ads. Maybe there weren't, map ads yet, but really what's really changed besides there being, 4 ads instead of 3, occasionally 1 paid map placement. And then I know that local service ads have been like a huge thing because it's pushing everything else down. But I've done a couple of surveys to really gauge what the spread of what people are clicking on is. And basically what happened when the local service ads came out, the amount of clicks, to the LSAs went up, but that percentage of clicks altogether didn't come away from organic, it came away from Google ads. So what happened was when LSAs dropped, maybe it was getting 10% of all clicks, and then Google ads were getting, let's say, 30%, for example. When LSA went up to 20%, Google ads went down to 20%. Like that 10% shifted over to that.
It took it from ads and not from organic, is what you're saying.
Right. It didn't like cannibalize more organic. So people are like, oh, it's monetizing more and more of the page. It's like, yeah, but regardless of desktop or mobile, it's still organic. Like Maps is huge. And then plus ads don't even really show up for long-tailed searches, which is a huge amount of people searches.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee. So your entire industry could be demonetized, which I've seen twice, right, from a paid search ad standpoint.
Great point too.
Or you might not even be, like, ads, local service ads might not even be available for the type of business that you have. I know the one that I work in right now isn't. Their category isn't covered by that, right? So it's not even an option. And there's no guarantee that this particular market you want to have them in is going to show up there. So there's a lot of hit and miss, and there really isn't when it comes to like organic. Like you can pretty much, you're going to show up in a specific location if you want to, if you target it. So I don't think it's going away. I think obviously if Google could make everything paid, they would, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But just human beings just don't trust ads as much as they do things that come up naturally, right? Which is weird because way more sketchy stuff happens from organic SEO than it does from ads. So.
Right. Yeah. Ads, I mean, they just get flagged if you're not following the protocol and you're kind of abusing, the standards of it, like using exclamation points or like stuffing it with, branded keywords or competitions keywords. Like there's all those things that kind of in place, and organically it's kind of a free for all relative to that.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to this.
Actually, I want to mention just one last thing as far as Google is monetizing results. So it's not so much the concern, I think, for SEOs isn't so much like, are they just going to find more and more opportunities for ads? I think that we're talking about more and more ways Google doesn't even want people to go into websites at all. They just want the results and they want the information to be present from the SERP, not even a site. So that's something I think we've talked about in the past. That's the thing that I think we're thinking about more.
But that's not going to get rid of SEOs. That's going to make them even, like if you want to show up at all, you need someone to optimize stuff to show up as like a rich snippet, And a lot of just general business owners don't even know what that is, like what a rich snippet is, so.
Sure. So I guess that's something to consider, not necessarily an issue of any sort. So
yeah. All right, let's move on to this next bad boy. You go ahead and read it.
Yeah, sure. So someone comes to me and let's say it's a potential client. They're doing a few things and they're kind of grilling me. And then they ask me, I already know how to buy content. This is a conversation I definitely have. Like, I'm already buying content. I got a good writer. I use this agency. I use this writer. I already do well with links. I buy this package off of Fiverr. It's working. Why do I need a dedicated SEO? Like, I got the content links. What are you going to do? Have you had that? Probably haven't had that kind of situation.
I mean, that's another thing that I hear, right? And we've been on pitches together for clients. So obviously I've heard it. Why don't you go ahead and answer this one first?
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting because, when I talk to a prospective client, the approach is really comprehensive because, it's not one thing that's going to set anything over, right? So we're talking about local, we're talking about on page, we're talking about content, we're talking about links. And so I say, it's a whole plan, it comes together, and then someone comes in and they say, well, I want to a la carte because I have a couple of things covered already. So it's interesting because it seems tempting in a lot of situations for SEOs to be like, okay, you're the boss. I'll just do like your on page and I'll end up in a agreement with you where I'm getting paid a third or a fourth of what I should be. So the whole thing is explaining kind of why you have to kind of take over the whole process for it to kind of work together, because, an SEO comes into play because they're going to, I guess this might sound really basic, but they're going to be able to explain to you why your link package is either not working as much as you thought it was, or it's not sustainable and those links are going to disappear in a month or two from now. Or your content, you think it's good, but do you truly know like what goes into a well-balanced like piece of content that's going to rank well? Or maybe it's being sent to you and it's plagiarized and you didn't even like think to take that extra step to know how poorly rewritten it was from some kind of bogus source. So an SEO really comes into play to be like your partner that's able to like, it's not a guardian angel, but it's like your partner to ensure that every step of the way is like being executed the way that it should be, because a content writer is a content writer. They might write great content, but do they know how to get visibility? Probably not. Does a business owner really know how to vet good links? No. It takes a lot of research and a lot of trial and error. You can't just go somewhere and see like 500 reviews and be like, oh, obviously it's good. It's like, obviously there might be 500 people that don't know any better. That's just how SEO is.
Yeah, there's so many facets to SEO. I mean, it's like when you get asked, "Hey, are you an SEO expert?" It's like, well, there's a lot. It's a big discipline. There's definitely some areas I'm better at than other areas, right? So to piecemeal something like that when you don't know what you're doing is like not advised. Like I can find things from different vendors or whatever and put it all together as like a larger strategy because like I know how to do it. But
yeah,
if you've never done it, or it's just one of those things where like you need to put in the hours to really know how to do it well, and you have to constantly keep up with it with like the changes. And so there's no really good SEOs that are like part-time SEOs. Like you gotta really be doing it. And so it's just like how much do you want to grow and how successful do you want to be? If you want it to just be kind of marginal, not really kill it, then probably do it like that. If you want it to like super grow, you gotta find someone that knows what they're doing.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned like kind of a key word in there, which is piecemeal. So what happens if someone has that approach? It very much is a piecemeal approach that it's never going to have the cohesion it needs to truly click, because you're going to get some links, but then there's not really a vision for what the links do, right? So what'll happen is they buy packages, it has authority, it goes home page. You don't control the anchor text. It doesn't go to the page level. So you're wondering why, like, well, my DA, I read that DA is important. It's going up, but nothing's really happening. Then I'm getting content, but you don't realize that the topics you're writing about aren't unique.
That one of the things I see too that's like frustrating. I see this more from like a C-suite, right? Like they want to launch a new campaign or something. They're like, well, we want to hire like an SEO expert, and it's like, well, I'm not sure you'd be able to identify one. Like exactly. You wouldn't even know what one is or isn't. So you shouldn't try and like place that position. You should let someone that knows, right? And it's the same thing. It's like if you don't know what like black hat links are, like how to build them, or like what's good or bad, like you're gonna, you're putting yourself in a bad situation from the start.
Yeah, that'll be a good segue for 9, and because I don't want to get ahead of it, but this will be like a perfect segue. I don't want to skip into it because this definitely starts to meld into that part of it. So that's the start of it. A dedicated SEO just brings the vision for absolutely every component of the website and is going to be able to identify like the true purpose of your links and content without you going out and just being like, it has good reviews and whatever.
Yeah. Even if you just signed, like if the person was good, like you found like someone that can show you like like third-party verified results of campaigns that they've done, right? I would suggest like, if you don't want to do like a long-term contract, like at least have them set up the strategy, and then hire someone that like doesn't know what they're doing to like follow them or something, like to see what they're doing or something. But I mean, like, don't piecemeal it like this. It's like, don't go to like Fiverr, and like find a couple of things like that. It's just stupid. You don't want to do it.
Or even just like one last point, even I've seen people that felt that they were in a position where they're more advanced, like, oh, I'm actually past like my beginner slump. It's like that whole, I forget what the name of the graph is where, you put in 100 hours and you think you're an expert, and then it just, there's a steep decline as you start to realize.
It's like people feel like the most you feel like you're an expert at anything is when you're like 25. and then it just goes down and down and down from there when you realize like how much there is to everything, right?
And then 10 years from then is when you actually start to really truly believe that you're an expert, almost to the degree you did 10 years before, but still not quite. That's how significant.
Yeah. 10 years more.
Yeah. And 10 years more, and you still are you're still at 90% of the confidence level. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. So let's get into the next one.
All right. Number 8, once I have enough qualified traffic and excellent results, why shouldn't I be able to scale down at this point? So I'm going to quote something that I heard from the president of Seer Interactive.
Okay.
What was the guy's name again?
Will
Reynolds. I'm going to quote something from Will Reynolds, the
Oh,
founder.
yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, of Seer Interactive. So Will Reynolds is a very like charismatic speaker, and he used to like be big on the SEO conference circuit, right? And he's really like personable to you, and so he's made a really successful agency. And when you talk to him, he never talks down to anyone, which is something that like I really like about him, and then I really hated it
I
about
thought you were
like
going to say
Rand Fishkin.
really need to work on.
Yeah, I need to work on that
I
too.
gotta work on that.
But like Rand Fishkin is like notorious for talking down to people when you actually talk to him in person.
Oh, for real?
And
That's unfortunate.
yeah, but so one thing that he said is that campaigns are never over. So like people create like really awesome content and put it out there, and maybe they spend a little bit of time like building links to it, like a month or two or whatever, and then it's done, right? But like if you put an effort and time into like things, you have to like continually do it and run campaigns like as long as you possibly can, because you're going to get more and more benefit from it, right? So the idea of like scaling down is not really like a concept that I would be comfortable with an SEO, simply because one, it's always changing. You should always be wanting to increase your traffic like more and more. I mean, I know there's like some niches and stuff like that where like you've maxed out, right? Like maybe the company doesn't want to grow. I worked at a law firm that didn't want to open any more locations. Like they didn't want any more like areas to serve or whatever. They just wanted to.
That's just depressing.
But I would still say like you have to. It takes effort to maintain what you have, right? Like it takes a lot of effort to get to the top, but it takes like continual effort to stay at the top. If it was like a one-time thing, my life would be a whole hell of a lot easier on the SEO side, and I wouldn't have to continually do work all the time, right? But unfortunately, it's not. It doesn't exist in a vacuum.
I did put the cliche in here that a lot of people say it, especially my sales people say, SEO is a marathon, not a sprint. Actually, I say race here. I think it's sprint is more the word, but that's okay. People get the point. It's interesting because this is a good way to almost like vet people you may even want to work with, even from a consulting or employment standpoint, because if they're looking at SEO, like, okay, how long is it going to take to rank? Which is a fair question, but then it's almost like, how long do we have to do this for is probably a better question. Then it's almost like a red flag for your partnership, because SEO can go on indefinitely, because as a business owner, it's good to acknowledge that the return on investment is going to grow over time. If you're looking at it from an ROI standpoint, you would never stop doing SEO because there's always something to work on.
You'll never find a channel that is more profitable and less expensive than SEO.
Yeah. Once it's clicking, a lot of people brag about, 3 to 5 ROI, which is good. Don't get me wrong, but SEO is one of those things where you do see 10 to 20 times return on investment.
It's generally like ongoing for a long period of time.
Yeah. And it grows and grows on that. So to give an example with, how it does end up going continuously. And I didn't even mention, why shouldn't I be able to stop doing SEO? Because that's a horrifying question. The scale down is actually a little bit more, appropriate or logical, but there's always something to work on. So, I've clients that have been with us forever, and, we just continue blogging, answering questions that are trending. People aren't going to ask the same questions today as they did a year ago or a year from now, as far as things that change in like the world as a whole. But COVID, I mean, look at what happened there. That search behavior and everything changed on like freaking on a dime right there, and that changed the whole content strategy. LSAs came up, and they changed the way people interact with SERPs. Structured
the
data.
SERPs change themselves all the time, right? Google is constantly testing things, so you have to be on top of it, and you have to be able to pivot your strategy to take advantage of those things.
I think that there's this quote I heard a while ago, and it kind of holds like the fire under my ass a bit, but it's like, it's really intense, and I don't always have to think about it. But it's basically like every hour that you're not working is another hour someone's working to take everything you've worked for away from you.
Yeah, I've heard that quote before.
Yeah,
and it's
I said it with the most convoluted way possible, but it's pretty intense. So that happens in SEO because at any given moment, there are 10 other people that are talking to SEOs and companies and coming up with strategies on how to take all the positions you've been working hard for away from you.
Yeah. And if you're good at it, like people are analyzing what you've done and trying to reverse engineer it and
That's
take
that's a
stuff from you.
great point, because once you're number one, there's 50 people that are looking at SEMrush, Ahrefs, and SpyFu, looking at your links, looking at your content, looking at your website, looking at your agency, and reconstructing what's been working for you. And
I've gone on
understand it.
YouTube and seen people like try to reconstruct my rankings that I don't know. I have no idea who they are, just like for this particular niche that I'm in. They're like, oh, this thing ranks first, so we're going to figure out, what it's doing.
And the tools are transparent. I mean, there are not that many, if any, proprietary things that are not accessible, besides maybe a couple links that are impossible for them to get, no matter how much money they want to spend.
Definitely. All right. So I think we covered this one. Let's move on to number 9.
All right. I read the last one. Oh, I didn't.
No,
right.
That was me.
All right. So this kind of is the segue I was mentioning. Why do I need dedicated SEO? So this is a really good one, especially in my situation where people have been burned several times in the past, and they say, I've already worked with SEOs in the past and it was nothing. SEO doesn't work. It's a waste of money. Why is this going to be any different this time around? And then my answer is like, I don't know.
You worked with the really bad one? I don't know. Like, if you're questioning if it does, are you questioning if it exists? Is that what you're saying? Like,
well, they've been burned so bad by previous SEOs that, were talked it up and had a good reputation. And it's both. It's like, why are you any different if SEO works? And then also, like, someone saying, I don't think SEO works at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy to just prove that it does work. Right. And I think that's more of like a comfort level with whoever the client is or the boss or whatever. If they're pessimistic about like what SEO can do, you can just show competitors as like third-party tools, right, that are going to verify like what's happening, and that you can get it. I mean, what I always like to do is like when you're going to get asked this a lot if you're applying for SEO jobs. Like, people are always going to be like, hey, can you give me an audit or something like that, right? Like, or basically do some work for us for free, which I kind of hate because like sometimes they take your ideas, they don't hire you, right? Which sucks.
I've been there before, right?
Definitely happened. I think it's if you're good, it probably happened to everyone that's listening, right? That's good at SEO.
Just charge them for the audit.
Yeah, and I kind of hate like any job that's like asking you to do work for free to decide if they're going to.
I know. I try to avoid that myself. Yeah.
So, but the bigger thing, right, is you have to point out like areas of opportunity, right? You're like, if you can show like, well, this is what a competitor is doing and they're getting this because they're doing that, you're not doing it, right? So these are like go for like little wins. Like, that's what I do. And usually it makes people feel a little more comfortable. And then just always be transparent too. They probably hired someone that like guaranteed something, and you just got to be like, we've talked about this before, just never guarantee anything. I think we talked on the last episode. Don't guarantee like results. You just say like, this is the kind of work that you have to put into it to get there. And this is like your realistic budget. And that's pretty much all I do. Just trying to make them, just try to convince them that SEO is real. Right.
Yeah. And you mentioned also, some examples of previous work, and a lot of business owners are becoming savvy to the point where, which is great. I'm glad that this is happening, so they don't get fleeced freaking every second, that when SEOs come up and they say, hey, check out this traffic, like, oh, look, we got 100% more traffic, or we got all these rankings, that it's not good enough anymore. So people have to be transparent to the point, and anyone listening, you have to provide what the result of those KPIs was. Did it result in more sales? Show this. You have to show the sales, the leads, the amount of calls and form submissions and chat sessions. Like, you really have to show. You don't have to show like the individual's names and emails for verification, but within reason, showing that it resulted in leads, and don't make it up. Like, don't fabricate this crap. It has to be legit, because this person, they're putting the future of their business, on your expertise. So being as transparent over the full funnel as much as possible. Yeah. And I think that, when people ask like, why are you going to be different? Some things that are definitely happening just with the number of SEOs and agencies that have really come up in about the past 3 to 5 years. At this point, I really think that people have to niche down. So your days of agencies that can work with 40 different industries are pretty much done because each one is competitive in its own right. People that are very much like connected in the industry, that maybe they have done industry specific webinars or conferences, speaking engagements. I mean, that's what it's kind of come down to.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also like, just showing past experience, right? Like if you've done like past successes that you've done, if you can show that to someone, they usually feel a lot better about it, about everything too, right?
And I think you can tell them a little bit about your plan, but it's like you're saying with the audit, you don't want to give them the blueprint, they run with it. That's bull, right?
Yeah, I just absolutely hate like doing work for people, doing work in general. Actually like putting a lot of work together and then like you get nothing out of it, right? And I feel like places take advantage of you sometimes when they do that.
They do. I mean, I typically, if someone's going to be serious before the pitch, I'll have the team do like a 30 or 45-minute audit of what I call or pretty much an overview of opportunities for the website. So I try to keep it positive instead of like, there's all the crap that's wrong and you suck at. So
yeah,
I try not to get in the
when I work with outside vendors and I make them, they put all this stuff together and they pitch and whatever, and there's back and forth, and then it ends up like not happening, because of like whatever reason on my side. I always feel terrible about it. I'm like, those people like, put all this time together and they didn't get anything out of it.
Well, is it that you were like having 3 different people pitch you and you picked one, or is it just this one person you just didn't feel like it was going to fit?
Honestly, one time it was like we were thinking about switching to a different thing. And then the thing that I don't want to say what they all are. The thing that we already had, like, I kind of told them like we were thinking about leaving them, and they offered me like such a better deal. I had to keep it. It was like so substantially cheaper than like what the other company was like pitching afterwards. And like, they just like, were like, we can't match that. So
you don't feel like has it completely diminished the value of what they're doing if they're doing the same thing just for a significant lower cost, and then you're just like, now I
mean, it was like for citations, right? So
yeah, like, that's fine.
Yeah, so I felt okay with that, but I ended up using that partner later on in the future on a different projects and stuff like that, and they did a really good job. But I felt like really bad at the time. I was like, we've been talking for like 3 months, and basically it's been a waste of your time. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually just got word back from a potential client yesterday after talking to them for a bit. And it's like, well, it was between you and another person. And my point of contact was like, I wanted to go with you, but the other person that made a decision wanted to go with someone local. I'm like, oh gosh, that can't really be. Is that the reason? I'm like, they better be in the legal industry or else y'all messed up. Like if they're local and they're legal and they're good, that's fine. Like, best of luck. But if they're just local and that trumped the fact that they were not legal specific, that's going to blow up a few months from now. Anyway.
Okay. Let's move on to this last question. How will I measure your SEO efforts success if they're so much more difficult to track compared to other marketing? They're not. So they're only difficult if like you hire someone that doesn't know how to do any tracking, or you have no idea how tracking works in like general. I don't think they're any more difficult to track than any other medium.
There's a huge stigma still to this day, major stigma that SEO is very, very difficult to track. And they're like, that's why I like paid, because paid is like, I pay for the lead. I know the traffic goes to the landing page, and when it converts, I have the number, I have the form, and I know it originated in my paid form. And I'm like, that doesn't even make a difference from an SEO standpoint.
It's like, there's always going to be holes in your data, right? Like regardless of the medium, right? So like, let's say I click on a paid ad and then I come to your store after I look at the paid ad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, how do you know that was a conversion?
Well, now that
you don't know if it turned into a sale.
Well, there's a big debate, and I'd probably love to have someone discuss this.
You can do in-store visits is a thing now.
Well, it's a first touch point or last touch point attribution, which is a very subjective debate, which you assign credit to.
That's a bigger question, but you can do all that. You can track all that. So if you have someone that knows what they're doing, it makes it a whole hell of a lot easier to like attribute things.
See their whole journey, like the 4 places they may have come through before they decided to contact you?
Yeah, like you can see the whole journey. Like you can learn a lot of like really, really great insights about your customer through this too, right? So like it's not just are you going to have better like good attribution. You can be like, oh, I know like what my customers do. Like how long it really takes for like a lead to like generate into like a sale, right?
Yeah.
And you can build a lot of custom things around that.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a whole conversation about attribution in general, but just to have it for SEO, I mean, people seem to struggle with it a lot because, like, for example, I work with law firms, and then they try to have another layer of accountability for the lead source, and then the front desk will be like, "How did you find out about us?" And they're like, "Google." But then it's like it might have been Google Ads, it could have been LSAs, it could have been maps, it could have been organic results, and it's like, don't let that person decide. Don't let a freaking human do it. Let technology decide.
Most of the time is like that question's never even asked. So you have no idea. It's stuff like it can definitely be done. It can definitely be done way better. Like I could even do a better job, but I mean, sometimes it's like costly to set things up. So like call tracking, like you have to use call tracking.
Yeah.
You got to set all that stuff up. You got to pay for numbers, and you got to pay for like the minutes that go through the numbers so you can track it. So
sure.
It can be relatively cheap if you don't have like a ton of numbers, but I have like 7,000. So
yeah, I mean for you, I can't even imagine. I mean, we do CallRail, which has been fantastic for dynamic number insertion, and we do it on behalf of our clients, and we get that bill, and it's like, I don't know, $1,000 a month, which is, it's not cheap, but to have complete transparency of what's coming in via phone calls is like, that's like a game changer, being able to like let them know with confidence.
Definitely.
These campaigns are working. So there's no excuse for not being able to track SEO. From a form submission standpoint, you have forms that can give you the referral path of how they got to the form. From a chat is exactly the same thing. Dynamic call insertion is very, very accurate when it comes to being able to tell you it came from SEO or paid or social or direct or a press release or a blog you did on another website. It's all there. So you don't need to lean on people to verify it. It's like, no, you have to rely on technology that's been proven to do this. Don't have like some person like, okay, they said Google, what Google? Oh, I don't know. That's like, great, cool. Great job with attribution, because it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ryan, I think you have a good link in that article, in this article that links to how to do a lot of tracking. And we've covered this in multiple episodes, but there's a way to track almost everything. The only thing that I haven't figured out how to track is like if people click a direction request from G&B and come to your store and then are a sale. I'm not 100% sure how to like tie that to a sale.
Do you talk to Google about it yet?
No, I have not. They don't return my calls anymore. So.
You're calling 1-800-Google, correct?
Yeah, 1-800 Google. So you know the number. You've tried. No, that's like the one thing though. Like I'm not sure unless they make something really cool that's specific to G&B that's going to fix that. But at the moment, there's nothing. So, but anyways, so I think we gave some pretty good answers, pretty good advice here. If you're still listening,
I'd like to think so. This is how I'd answer everything, frankly.
We cut through a lot of the brain fog, right?
Yeah, it was good job. Pretty potent. Nope, now I'm screwing up right at the end.
Oh, damn. But I just want to say thanks to everyone who's listening. We really appreciate all of our listeners. We try to get back to you guys as soon as possible when you contact us. But if you're interested in being on the show or you have a question you'd like us to answer, you can reach out to us at seosdeadandotherlies@gmail.com. We respond to that really, really quickly. Or, leave a YouTube comment or something like that on our YouTube channel. Either of those are pretty fast, but we don't do anything on Twitter. I hate Twitter.
Twitter's just very anti-Twitter. And then if you have a big like SEO meeting coming up and you don't know anything about SEO whatsoever and you want to just get through it and hopefully get the job, we'll coach you through that. I'm just joking. We'll you
just listen to all the episodes. You'll learn some stuff.
I'm joking. You're being very irresponsible and you shouldn't apply for the job. That's what I meant to say.
But and also be sure to like, share, subscribe anywhere that you listen to our podcast at. We'd really appreciate that as well. But anyways, thank you so much again for listening. I'm Paul Warren.
And I'm Ryan Klein.
And this has been another episode of SEOs Dead and Other Lies.
Have a lovely day.
Bye.